When 17-year-old Malik Johnson stepped onto the national debate stage, no one believed in him. Not the judges who dismissed his facts. Not his smug rival, Brad, who cheated to sabotage him. And definitely not the system that kept telling him his voice didn't matter. But Malik had one weapon they couldn't delete: the truth. And what happened next? Let's just say, the crowd wasn't expecting this. Like, comment, and share. Subscribe for more stories of courage that defy the odds. Now let's begin. The auditorium buzzed with nervous energy, the air thick with the scent of polished wood and fresh coffee. Students shuffled papers, whispered last-minute strategies, and adjusted their blazers. At the center of it all stood Malik Johnson, a 17-year-old African-American debater from Lincoln High, gripping his note card so tightly his knuckles turned white. This was the regional debate finals, and the topic was, does the American dream still exist for everyone? Malik had spent weeks preparing, researching statistics, crafting airtight arguments, even practicing his delivery in front of the mirror until his voice didn't waver. But none of that seemed to matter the moment his opponent, Brad Thornton, smirked at him from across the podium. Brad was the reigning debate champion, a tall, broad-shouldered senior from the wealthiest school in the district. He had a way of speaking that made people lean in, even when his arguments were flimsy. And right now, his confidence was a weapon. Malik took a deep breath and began. The American dream is built on the promise of equal opportunity. But when systemic barriers, racial inequality, economic disparity, and biased policies persist, that dream remains out of reach for millions. His voice was steady, his points backed by data. But before he could finish, Brad scoffed, loud enough for the judges to hear. "Come on, Malik," Brad interrupted, rolling his eyes. "You're making excuses. If people just worked harder, they'd succeed. My dad came from nothing, and now he's a CEO. No handouts." The judges didn't reprimand Brad for the interruption. One even nodded, as if Brad's oversimplified argument held weight. Malik's chest tightened. It wasn't the first time his words had been dismissed, but it still stung. When the results were announced, Brad won. The crowd erupted in applause, but Malik's best friend, Jasmine, clenched her fists. "That wasn't fair," she whispered. "You destroyed his argument, and they acted like you didn't even speak." Malik forced a smile. "It's fine. I'll get him next time." But as he walked out of the auditorium, Brad and his friends blocked his path. "Nice try, Malik," Brad sneered. "Maybe stick to basketball next time. At least then you'd have a shot." Laughter followed him down the hall. That night, Malik sat at his kitchen table, replaying the debate in his head. His mother, Miss Johnson, placed a hand on his shoulder. "You okay, baby?" He sighed. "I don't get it, Ma. I had the facts. I had the logic. But it's like, my voice doesn't matter." She sat beside him, her eyes fierce. "Your voice always matters. Just because some people refuse to listen doesn't mean you stop speaking." Malik exhaled. Maybe she was right. Maybe the problem wasn't his arguments. It was who was hearing them. A week later, an envelope arrived in the mail. Malik had been invited to the National Youth Debating Championship, the biggest stage for high school debaters in the country. His heart raced. This was his chance. But Brad would be there too. And this time, Malik wouldn't just be fighting for a trophy. He'd be fighting to be heard. The invitation to the National Youth Debating Championship should have felt like a victory. But as Malik stared at the embossed letter in his hands, All he could think about was Brad Thornton's smug grin, the way it had burned into his memory after regionals. "You're really going?" his little sister, Keisha, asked, peering over his shoulder. At 12, she was his biggest cheerleader, but even she sounded unsure. Malik folded the letter carefully. "Yeah, I have to." His mother looked up from her grading. Papers from her 5th grade class spread across the kitchen table. "You know we're behind you, right? No matter what." He nodded, but doubt gnawed at him. What if the judges at nationals dismissed him too? What if his words still weren't enough? The next few weeks were brutal. Malik spent hours in the library, digging through studies on racial disparities, economic mobility, and policy reform. His best friend, Jasmine, quizzed him relentlessly, playing devil's advocate to sharpen his rebuttals. "You're too stiff," she said one afternoon, tossing a crumpled paper at him. "Debate isn't just about facts, it's about making people feel them." Malik frowned. "Since when are you a debate coach?" Jasmine smirked. "Since always. Now, try again. And this time, don't sound like a textbook." He rolled his eyes but listened. He practiced weaving in personal stories. His uncle, who worked 2 jobs and still couldn't afford health care. His friend Dion, who got suspended for the same thing a white kid got a warning for. The more he spoke from experience, the more powerful his arguments became. But just as he started finding his rhythm, Brad resurfaced. It happened the week before nationals. Malik was in the school computer lab, putting the final touches on his case file, when the screen suddenly froze. Then, poof, everything disappeared. "What the—" He frantically clicked the mouse, but the document was gone. A snicker came from behind him. Brad and his debate teammate, Ryan, leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "Oops," Brad said, feigning sympathy. "Should have saved your work, man." Malik's stomach dropped. He had saved it, multiple times, which meant someone had deliberately deleted it. Jasmine stormed in just then, her eyes blazing. "You're pathetic, Brad. Can't win fair, so you cheat." Brad held up his hands. "Whoa, whoa! No proof, no crime." He smirked at Malik. "Guess you'll just have to start over." Malik clenched his jaw. He wanted to yell, to shove Brad against the wall, but what good would that do? It would just prove Brad's twisted point, that Malik was emotional, unstable, everything people expected him to be. So he took a deep breath. "Fine, I'll rewrite it." Brad's smirk faltered, just for a second. He hadn't expected that. That night, Malik was rewriting his notes at the kitchen table when his phone buzzed. An unknown number. Unknown. "Check your email. You'll want to see this." Frowning, he opened his inbox. There, from a burner account, was a video attachment. He clicked play, and his breath caught. It was security footage from the computer lab. Clear as day, it showed Brad logging into Malik's profile and deleting his files. Proof. Malik's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Who had sent this? And why? Then another message popped up. Unknown. Don't waste it. A friend. The next morning, Malik could have gone straight to the principal. He could have gotten Brad disqualified, maybe even suspended. But as he walked into school, he saw Brad holding court in the hallway, laughing like he hadn't just tried to ruin Malik's chances. And suddenly, Malik knew what he had to do. He walked right up to him. "I know what you did," Malik said, voice low. Brad's smile didn't waver. "Yeah? And what are you going to do about it?" Malik held his gaze. "Nothing." Brad blinked. "What?" I'm not reporting you, Malik said, because when I beat you at nationals, I want it to be fair. I want you to know you lost because I was better. For the first time, Brad looked shaken. Malik turned and walked away, the weight of the video still heavy in his pocket. He didn't need to use it, not yet, because the real victory wouldn't come from exposing Brad's lies. It would come from proving his own truth. The lights of the Grand Colombian Hotel's ballroom shone like a constellation, casting long shadows across the stage where Malik now stood. The National Youth Debating Championship was nothing like regionals. The audience was packed with journalists, college scouts, and even a few politicians. The air smelled of expensive perfume and nervous sweat. Malik adjusted his tie, his fingers trembling just slightly. Across the stage, Brad Thornton flashed him a cold smile, like they shared some private joke. But Malik wasn't laughing. The moderator, a silver-haired woman with a no-nonsense demeanor, stepped to the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, our final debate topic: meritocracy in America. Myth or reality? Malik's pulse quickened. He had prepared for this, lived it. Brad went first. America is the land of opportunity, Brad declared, his voice smooth, practiced. If you work hard, you succeed. Period. Look at my father. Started with nothing, built an empire. No excuses. The judges nodded, one even jotting down notes with an approving hum. Then it was Malik's turn. He took a breath. If meritocracy were real, he began, then why do studies show black applicants with identical resumes to white applicants get 50% fewer callbacks? Why do kids in underfunded schools, kids like my cousin, who studies in a classroom with leaking ceilings, have to work twice as hard just for half the chance? His voice didn't shake this time. It carried. Brad scoffed. Sounds like a lot of complaining. Maybe if people focused less on blaming the system and more on... On what? Malik cut in, sharper than he'd intended. On pretending the system's fair? My mother works 2 jobs. My uncle served this country and still can't get a loan. Are you saying they're just not trying hard enough? A murmur rippled through the crowd. One of the judges, a man with thin lips and a sharper gaze, leaned forward. Mr. Johnson, this is a debate, not a personal rant. Stick to structured arguments. Malik's stomach dropped. There it was again, the dismissal, the tone policing. But then he caught Jasmine's eye in the front row. She gave him the tiniest nod. Do it. Malik set his note cards down. You want a structured argument? Fine. Let's structure it around reality. He stepped out from behind the podium, facing the audience fully. 2 months ago, my opponent hacked into my computer and deleted my research. Why? Because he knew facts don't lie. And the fact is, Brad shot up. That's a lie. You can't just... I have proof, Malik said calmly. He pulled his phone from his pocket, the video already queued up. But I'm not here to play dirty. I'm here to ask if even in a debate where logic is supposed to win, people like me still have to fight just to be heard. What does that say about the real world? Silence. Then, from the back of the room, slow clapping. A man in a suit stood. Malik recognized him as a dean from Howard University. Others joined in. Even the thin-lipped judge looked stunned. Brad's face flushed crimson. This isn't how debates work. You can't just... Actually, the moderator interrupted. This is exactly how they should work. Truth isn't always polite, Mr. Thornton. When the results were announced, Malik's name echoed through the ballroom. Champion. Brad stormed off stage, but Malik barely noticed. His mother was crying. Jasmine was screaming. And that dean from Howard, He was waiting to talk to Malik about a scholarship. Later, as the crowd thinned, the thin-lipped judge approached. "You made me rethink some things today," he admitted gruffly. "That's rare." Malik smiled. "That's the point, sir." The video of Malik's debate went viral. News outlets called it the speech that exposed meritocracy's flaws. But the moment that stuck with people wasn't his triumph. It was his mercy. Because when a reporter asked if he regretted not getting Brad disqualified earlier, Malik said, "This was never about him. It was about proving that no matter how hard someone tries to silence you, the truth always finds a way out." And somewhere in the crowd, watching the interview on a phone, Brad Thornton finally stopped smirking. Thank you for watching.